Today, I'm going to talk about a few things, and I want to start right off. I'll get right into it. How to effectively program overhead press. So, you can be a person where if you only train bench, you can have a mediocre overhead press. And if you only train overhead press, you can have a mediocre bench. They don't necessarily carry over to each other without training the other. So, specificity as far as the crossover, it has to be there. You have to train both to get both to go up. Now, how I would program overhead press and how I do for my guys is I would either do overhead press half the week as a main lift. So you're benching half the week as your main lift. Let's say you have 4 upper body days. You could have 2 bench days where bench is the main movement. And then you could have two days where overhead press is the main movement. That's one way to do it. So it's an equal amount of benching and overhead pressing where they are the priority lifts. They are the main lifts on that day. That's one really good way to do it. Another good way to do it, you could do bench 2 days a week, overhead press in the middle. If you want to prioritize bench a little more, but still get a good overhead press, that's another way. Or vice versa, you could have overhead press on 2 days with bench in the middle if you want to prioritize overhead press a little more. But those are the most optimal ways to train it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Those are the best ways as far as getting the carryover. Another thing you can do, and that I often do with my guys is, especially if they're more powerlifting focused and they compete and bench is a high priority, bench can be your main lift or a variation of bench for all of your upper body days. So bench would always be the main lift or a variation of bench, say spoto press or floor press or something along those lines. But then overhead press would be one of your primary accessory movements. So a primary accessory movement is the lift you do immediately after bench. And you could do seated shoulder press with dumbbells. You could do push press, military press, or something along those lines. But those are going to be the most optimal ways to train overhead press to where it carries over to bench or vice versa to where bench carries over to overhead press. Those are the main ways. So it took me 2 minutes to say that. Just wanted to get that out there. That's what I've seen in my experience programming over the years and for myself, for my guys, everything. Now, another thing I want to talk about. So the concept of chunking, have you guys ever heard of this? This is where you break down a goal basically one step at a time. This is something that I utilize that's been really efficient for me to not get too ahead of myself. So obviously it's important, I feel like, in life to have bigger goals. Grand goals is what Chris Duffin called them back in the day when he was going for the 1,000-pound deadlift. And having these huge goals, that's a part of life. But there's always smaller short-term goals that make up the long-term goal. So you almost have to break it down one step at a time, one meet goal at a time. Let's say if you're going for your eventual goal is a 700-pound deadlift. Well, if you're at a 500-pound deadlift, you can't be worrying about a 700-pound deadlift. Focus on, say, getting a 510 deadlift, 520, and just chipping away like that is going to yield the best results. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's so important that you chip away at your PRs. If you're simply trying to get 5-pound PRs on bench, 10-pound PRs on squat and deadlift, you're going to get a lot further than thinking about adding 50 pounds to your lifts. Because adding 50 pounds to your lifts is not realistic, contrary to what it appears you see on social media or what people are conveying. But guys who get the best results focus on 5-pound PRs on bench and 10-pound PRs on squat and deadlift. And I obviously a little bigger of a progression on squat and deadlift because the lifts, the intensity ranges are generally much higher than bench. So if we have a 275 bencher, they might be a 405 squatter and a 455 deadlifter. So 10 pounds is a lot less of the overall percentage than, say, it would be for bench. But just do that. That's the rule of thumb I want you to follow. It's the example of chunking. It's like, I'm going to just go up 5 pounds on bench. I'm going to get a 5-pound PR. And then when you get that PR, you're going to get another 5-pound PR and keep focusing like that. Dial yourself in like that. You're going to be super efficient. You're going to get the best results you can. Deadlift, 10-pound PRs. That's what's going to yield the best results. This is the concept you need to have. Sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed. You're like, that guy pulls 800. I want to pull 800. But you're not going to get to 800 by focusing on 800. You're going to get there by focusing on 10 pounds at a time, chipping away. Don't get too greedy with your PRs. Even I have to remind myself with my guys sometimes. I can't get too greedy with them. Sometimes I'll want to make too big of jumps with my guys, and I got to realize, let's just chip away and keep doing that. And that's what's going to bring about the progress. Because pretty soon, you've got 4 or 5 pound PRs added up. You just added 20 pounds to your bench over the course of, say, 8, 9 months. And that's a reasonable time frame. 25 pounds a year on bench, 30 pounds maybe on squat and deadlift, maybe 50 pounds. And it depends, obviously, if you're on cycle and all that. But that's one other thing I wanted to touch on. Just break your goals down, small goals, chip away one at a time. That's going to be kind of the key. Another thing I want to talk about. So I've been listening to a lot of Chris Williamson, who obviously is roommates, friends with Zach Tellender. I know Zach, never spoken to Chris, but I find his content to be really good as far as opening your mind up. And one thing he was just talking about, I think it was in the 16 things he's learned on the 600th episode or something like that. And he talks about how we're always trying to live in the future or in the past. We're either focusing on what happened to us or we're focusing on where we think we want to be down the road, that we so often lose track of the present. We lose track of the moment we're in and let time pass us by, and we just take advantage of the time we have right now. We don't really soak in the moment. And I thought this was such a good thought process, because oftentimes you think, oh, my life will be easier later on when I don't have the problems I have now. But the problems you currently have may go away, but they'll just be replaced by new problems. So problems as a whole never go away. They're always there. You're always going to have some kind of struggle, whether it's financially, whether it's with your health, something, anything. There will constantly be struggles in your life. The struggles they change out, which is the problem with the grass is greener, idea. The whole grass is greener principle. The problem with that is you're thinking your problems will disappear if something changes, but you'll just inherit new problems. So often we just have to realize this is what's going to happen. It's not that our future is going to be necessarily so much better than the present. And we can't look back at what happened to us. We can't change that. So we need to soak in this moment and live in the present, even if it's not exactly where we want to be yet. And that's the whole idea with training, of you get caught up in where you want to be and the numbers you want to hit, that you lose sight of what you need to do in the moment to get there. And you don't enjoy this progression along the way. You're not happy with yourself because you say, I'm at a 525 deadlift, but everyone else is doing 700 and I need to get there as fast as possible. Whereas you should just chunk your goals down into 10-pound PRs on deadlift. And when you hit 535, appreciate that, soak it in, take it for what it's worth, and just, respect the journey, appreciate the journey, and look at how far you've come. I have to remind myself of this, guys. I'm no better than any of you. I commit the crime, so to speak, where I look at the future and think, oh, when I don't have these problems and when this is fixed and that's fixed, life will be better. But it's like we only get this one moment to be the age we are now. And in this time, I'm 31 years old right now. And in another few months, I'm going to be 32. 31 will never happen again. My daughter will never be 1 year old again. All this is going to go away. So we need to take advantage of it, appreciate it, soak it up, and acknowledge it. We need to be more aware. Everything around you is a distraction. Think about it. Sporting events, life, social media, it's all a distraction. All of that, what that does is it makes you go through life passively. And I still look at this stuff too. I watch football and I've watched a little bit of March Madness and I go on my phone on social media, but it's all makes you a passive person to where you don't live in the moment. You just let it just pass you by because you're engulfed in this thing that really doesn't matter at all. I mean, at the end of the day, does anyone even remember who won the Super Bowl last year? Who won the NCAA basketball tournament? Nobody freaking remembers. We barely remember what happened a week ago. We don't remember any of this. So this stuff is all just a distraction to distract us from our lives and from reality. And that's why I think a lot of things behind the scenes, even in politics, goes on, because we're just distracted. We don't even care. But that's a whole nother tangent. But my point is, we don't live intentionally because we are surrounded by this stuff. That's why I think to some extent, the internet and all this stuff is our downfall. It just makes us live passively. It makes us live where we're just always engulfed in something that has no actual meaning. And we lose sight of these goals. We lose sight of appreciating what we have. We're always jealous of everybody else. We're always comparing. We want a 700-pound deadlift, but we're only at 525, so we feel like trash. And it's like we can't appreciate that 535 would mean the world to us. Now it'd be big because we just saw someone pull 700, and that's not where we're at. So it's all this stuff comes together. It's all part of the bigger picture. It all comes together, and if you're not aware of it, it can take you down. It can distract you. It can cause your life to get off track. So this is something I'm trying to work on now, where it's like, I need to realize every day that this day is not coming back. This time is not coming back. I'm one day closer to death. You every day are one day closer to death. I'm not the first guy to say that. It's been said before, but you're not getting any younger. These opportunities are passing you by. This life is passing you by. You shouldn't wait 5 years from now to do something you want to do. Go for it now. You know, why not? What better time than the present? Your future is not going to be any more glorious. So go for it now. Go for the goal. I did something crazy, guys, on Wednesday. Today's Friday. I'm filming this on a Friday. This video will come out on a Sunday. I did something crazy on Wednesday that I just was like, you know what? This isn't going to necessarily appeal to people, but I want to do it. And it's pretty wild. And I'm really happy that I did it. And I feel amazing. And that's going to come out at a later date. More of this stuff, what I'm talking about. But it's just like, let's do it. There's the time. We're not getting any younger. We're not going to be in any better shape years from now. Let's go for it. Let's go for it, because we need to live in the present. We need to take advantage of the opportunity we have now, the good health. There's a lot of people who are 6 feet underground who wish they had the opportunity that you have right now. That's the truth. If you're a healthy person and you can go about and do this stuff and you have all these things going for you, appreciate them, take advantage of them, because it might not always be here. So like I said, I'm not perfect. I make the same mistakes you guys make, but I'm just almost reminding myself of this fact. And it's one of those things I want to bring out there. So if you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Appreciate every one of you.